It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Breakfast right around Australia, 7 days a week, talking, of course, about your property news, the trends in the market, all of those fluctuations. Yes, there's much to talk about in any week. We've got those 1,300 plus property podcasts that can help keep pace of what is happening in your local suburb. And remember too, I didn't realise that there was so many suburbs, 15,300 different suburbs around Australia. So it is a lot to try and track. It is a Thursday morning, August the 7th today. Now, fresh data highlights a widening price gap between houses and units in Sydney, positioning apartments as the current growth hotspot in the city's property cycle. This is really starting to develop and take off. According to PropTrack's latest home price index, Sydney's median house price is 1.564, almost double the median unit price of $860K in many suburbs. And I don't know about you, but that median, it seems to be bouncing around this year. Like we got up to 1.7, now it's at 1.564. It just depends, I guess, on the different sources. Now, this trend between houses and units, it has been mirrored nationwide, with houses now averaging $915K across the country compared to $678K for units. So that's an interesting little breakdown. Let's right now go back into Melbourne. We were there yesterday. We're catching up with Halli Moore from Buxton Real Estate. Halli, I would never have guessed how to say your name because it is spelt quite differently to how it sounds.
Good morning, Craig. Great to be on. Yes, as I explained to you a bit earlier, my origins, I was born in Iceland, actually, hence the spelling of my first name, and an Irish father. That's where the Moore comes in. So came to Australia in the 70s, pretty much an Australian now.
Gee, that's really interesting heritage. Not too many Icelandic real estate agents, as you were saying to me, probably in Australia. You've probably seen it all there in Melbourne, being in real estate for some time.
Yes, almost 25 years, Craig. So we've certainly seen the ebbs and flows of what the markets are doing, and certainly when the markets have been travelling very well, it's been a good time to be in real estate, but we've certainly seen all sorts of conditions, and more recently it's been a little bit more challenging, but I think there's going to be upside.
Yeah, no, it's great when it's travelling along nicely, but you throw in some crazy things like the COVID, like the cost of living, and I was just highlighting the difference in terms of wage growth. If you go back 100 years ago, it was 4 times to buy your average property. Now it is almost 14 times. So yeah, quite a big difference. Now I want to segue into people getting involved in the real estate industry. It is extremely competitive. There is thousands and thousands of real estate people that they move into real estate from various different positions and backgrounds. You've got professional people, you've got blue collar, you name it. You've probably seen it all sort of knocking on your door for jobs over the years.
Oh, absolutely. Things have certainly changed in my time during my stint in real estate. We've certainly seen, a broad range of people from different industries, and we're seeing really white-collar professionals. Some lawyers have entered into our business looking for a change of scenery, something a bit more local, not having to trudge into the city and grind away in that corporate life. Yeah, I think what we are seeing is people have this perception that real estate agents make easy money, and the reality, as we know, is that it is hard work. You have to stay the distance and be pretty dedicated, and the hard grind is the way you pave the rewards for future business and things like that. So it's interesting. You get a lot of people that come in and think it's going to be easy, and they quite quickly drop out because they haven't got, I guess, the ethic or the patience to grind away and reap the rewards ultimately.
You say that word, grind it out. I think that's the key. That probably needs to be highlighted more than ever when people are looking to go into the real estate industry. It is very much a grind to get yourself into a position where you're still going to be grinding, but that first 2 years is a really big mountain to climb, which is the reason why over 80% of people are actually failing in the first 12 months. What about 2025 in terms of you there in Melbourne, because you're running your franchise? What are you seeing for 2025 with people's attitude around real estate and getting stuck in?
Yeah, look, I think we're certainly seeing a lot more optimism in terms of our sales people, our sales team. I think people since COVID, we're seeing more flexibility in my business now. We have a lot of female people working within our sales department, and a lot of them are mums as well. So what we've had to adapt to in terms of our business is having that degree of flexibility of allowing people to have that work-life balance, which is certainly a good thing. We're getting more young people who are perhaps looking at the option of not necessarily having to go to university and doing a degree that they don't want to do and then ultimately having a HECS debt. We're getting a lot more younger people looking at the option of coming on as sales cadets within our business and working in with mentors in, pod teams and things like that. My advice has always been, if you've got the hunger, the enthusiasm, the want to work within a team, as a young person moving into this industry, having that tech savvy database, all those sorts of things, you can forge a really good career long term.
Do you think as a result of the social media aspect, and because there are so many young people that are showcasing, obviously flexing their muscles somewhat in terms of look at me, what I have done, I'm really achieving this. It does, I think, always send this false narrative for people that are thinking about becoming involved in the industry because they're looking at those top enders. But how much do you think the social media is luring people, younger people, into the industry in 2025 as you see it?
Yeah, look, I think we can often get clouded into seeing people's posts, flashy cars, all that sort of stuff within the real estate industry, and it's a bit of a rah-rah. I'm of the opinion that, and we're seeing in my sort of core market, it tends to be a more old established clientele. They're more open to the technology that social media does provide, and I think if it's done properly, not sort of beating your chest more or less, but providing some, value add stuff that clients can see and learn and look at results and things like that, I see a huge benefit because in my 25 years, the stuff that I'm learning from some of the younger demographic within our business is unbelievable. You've got to be open to change. If it's done correctly and tactfully, I think it's certainly the way of the future, absolutely.
It's the Real Estate Podcast, talking properties from 6 a.m. every day, from every corner of the Australian real estate market.
And Lyndall, recently I was talking to a couple who made the move out of Sydney. He was amazed and pretty happy with himself. He sold a 3-bedroom property. I can't remember the suburb, but I believe is coming up to retirement age. And he and his wife, instead of downsizing, they went from a 3-bedroom to a 5-bedroom and had plenty of money in the bank, which he was smiling about.
Absolutely, and why wouldn't you? Especially with the lifestyle that Newcastle has to offer. I have definitely seen, even with the interest rates dropping already this year, we are seeing a lot more from Sydney coming in as far as the inquiries go, probably more from an investment perspective. But look, Newcastle's a phenomenal city. We have a huge infrastructure which has come a long way. Like, a lot of people had the perception of Newcastle as a mining town, but we are a huge growing region and we have a lot of strong assets. So, for example, the university, the John Hunter Hospital, our amazing beaches, the Hunter Valley is 45 minutes away, Port Stephens is 45 minutes away. We have an airport which can take you to pretty much anywhere in Australia within 25 minutes. And I think it's just the lifestyle. Everywhere's 5 minutes in Newcastle. Like, you're not in traffic jams to get to where you need to go. You can get a park at the beach. There's beautiful restaurants. So it does have a lot to offer, but it's also so much more affordable than Sydney, for example.
Eager to expand your property expertise? Enhance your real estate know-how with us.
What I find also pretty interesting is some of these professionals that get involved in the real estate industry. Like, they may have been very successful 10, 20 years running their own business. They've decided they've been fortunate enough to sell their business. They've been self-employed for a number of years. They go into real estate, but they find it really difficult because it is a completely different animal. If you're your own boss and you've been doing that for 10 to 20 years, yes, you are still your own boss, so to speak, in real estate, because there is no ceiling to the amount of money that you can make. It's all down to you. But that transition from a successful person outside of real estate doesn't always transfer, does it? You must have seen that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of the time, sometimes when you have people who have been set in their ways and coming from another industry and things like that, if you're set in your ways and you're not open to, I guess, learning and being an integral team member, I think that's really important, because as a leader and a boss, if I was to say things are done my way and that's the only way, your business would be doomed. I think a lot of the difficulties for some of these people is that they're coming into a team environment, and when they've been the authoritarian sort of person in their previous life and they can't quite adapt into that sort of team environment, it becomes very difficult for them to ultimately survive, because they ultimately alienate others within the group, end up sort of having a difficult path to any success.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely relate to that. That's for sure. And the thing is, you just never can tell who is going to make a great real estate agent. If you could, you'd have winners all around you and they wouldn't be leaving. Hey, Harley, great to catch up with you there in Melbourne, and give that a little bit of a mention just in terms of what you need to bring to the table to get into real estate in 2025. If you're listening to the podcast and you're thinking you want to get involved in the real estate industry, there may be a few takeaways from our discussion. And thanks so much for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast. Enjoy your Thursday.
Good on you, Craig. Nice chatting.
We help to break down real estate every day to help you better understand the Australian property market.
Yeah, so what about the banks? Because it feels like the banks are being a little bit more competitive.
Well, that's correct, Craig. And I think if the lenders aren't passing on the discounts, a lot of consumers they're searching, so they're ready to refinance. They're not staying loyal to their lenders anymore, which we always encourage. NAB, Macquarie, Bank of Australia saw them cutting their fixed rates before they had even announced the cash rate discount. So the lenders are getting prepared.
So why do you think property has played, such a central role in personal wealth building and creation?
Part of the reason investment properties have been such an attractive part of a wealth accumulation strategy has been the accessibility. You are able to utilise a home as an asset to borrow against, to help buy into an investment property.
Without all of those wild ups and downs like crypto, as you say, real estate, long-term value.
There are examples in any asset class, whether it's crypto, whether it's property, whether it's shares, where you get the timing right. But fundamentally, if you invest in an asset class, have the ability to hold the asset, whether it's shares or property, they have both performed very strongly.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.